Hey, so welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to put Apple CarPlay in any car. To start off, let's talk about radio or head unit sizes. So there's two different sizes and then a third kind of type of head unit. So you have a single DIN head unit. So this is older, you'll see it on a lot of older cars, and they'll only have a tray big enough for a radio this size or a head unit this size. It's not all bad if you want a bigger screen and there's only a slot for a single DIN. There's head units out there that a screen will pop out. A lot of install kits, which we'll talk about those in a second, will allow you to upgrade to a double DIN, which is twice the height, which is what this is right here. So this is a head unit from ATOTO. So this head unit actually has Apple CarPlay built into it. So without having to spend all kinds of money on a newer car, you could buy a head unit like this. So let's talk about what's in the box and I'll show you the head unit itself. So in the box we have various cables to install it. We'll go over those here shortly. There's a microphone for your hands-free calling. This is a GPS antenna. These are install brackets because when you pull your OEM radio out of your car or your head unit, you're going to need to install it somehow. And I'll show you on the single DIN, but there's holes drilled in the side. The brackets would go in there and then allow you to install it. So the ATOTO head unit comes with those. It comes with a frame for around the face, a USB cable. There's some screen protectors, some instructions, but let's get down to the head unit itself. So this is the head unit right here. And if you look, it is double the height of the single DIN. So that's why it's called a double DIN. Now this is a touchscreen head unit and this is a newer one from ATOTO. I typically buy their head units just because they're really cheap entry-level head units that are good quality. So I'm going to show you how to install this in your vehicle so you can get that Apple CarPlay, and I don't want you to have to spend money at an audio shop, and I'm going to show you how to do it as well, if not better, than they would install it. So I know this truck's right-hand drive, and this might look a little weird, right? But it's the same concept with the US vehicle with the steering wheels on this side. So you'll have a space for a head unit. Now this truck originally had a single DIN that went half the height. I've used an install kit to be able to put a double DIN head unit in like this. Now this is a Jensen head unit. It's not a terrible head unit. I just don't care for the quality of it overall. So we're going to remove this. We're going to install the ATOTO. And I'll show you how to tie it in all together. One thing I should add is depending on what vehicle you have, let's say you have a 1995 Honda Civic, you might need a vehicle specific install kit, and they're pretty cheap, anywhere from $15 to $25 online. You can Google them, purchase that. But sometimes they have plug and play kits that either include the side brackets or the entire frame that you might need for the outside around the head unit to tie it all in to make it look kind of OEM and tie it all together. Because you don't want big gaps. You could take this off and install a head unit, but then you'd have gaping holes. You wouldn't have your vents held in place properly. Find that install kit very specific to your vehicle, and then make sure it's catered to either a double DIN or a single DIN, no matter what you're trying to install. But in this case, we're installing a double DIN. That's how you get that Apple CarPlay. You got that extra large screen, so you have your maps and such. So let's get back to the workbench and let's put together a wiring harness so that we can make this plug and play. First things first, there's a lot of connectors on the back of this head unit, and there'll be a connector inside of your vehicle behind your factory head unit. Now, what I prefer to do is to make it plug and play so that you're not having to cut wires on the vehicle's harness, because that's how you end up with fires, shorts, issues with the harness. Sometimes you'll see people drive over bumps and then their head unit will kick off and back on. So we're going to prevent that, right? So the ATOTO head unit, or whatever head unit you purchase, will have various wires on a harness that just plugs into the back of it. Now, usually they're pretty good about marking it. So this one says, the black wire says ground. This wire says rear camera, and I'll do a separate video showing you guys how to install a backup camera. I'll link it up on the top right corner of the screen for you. The rest of the wiring harness, I'll put a chart on the screen right now for you so you can see what each color corresponds to. Now that might seem like a lot right now, but it'll all make sense. So what you're going to want to do for your vehicle, right? So other than purchasing the frame or the install kit for your vehicle, you're going to want to purchase a plug-and-play stereo wiring harness or a head unit wiring harness. So this one is made by Metra. So I picked this up at O'Reilly's Auto Parts. They have them for various vehicles. This one fits Toyota 1986 and newer. So the Toyota wiring harnesses for their head unit are actually 2 pieces. So you have 1 piece there and a second piece here. So now what you need to do is you need to take the colors that are on your install wiring harness for your vehicle, and you need to connect them to the ATOTO or your head unit plug and play harness. So once you have all these connected, then all you do is you plug in your head unit and you plug it in straight to the truck, and you have a plug and play harness. You didn't molest or destroy your factory wiring harness behind your head unit at all. So you're less likely to have issues. If you need to return it to stock, you can do that. If you need to chase wiring issues, it's all on this harness. Now there's a couple different ways you can connect this together. There is right ways and there's wrong ways. I'm going to show you the really easy way. In fact, this is the way that most stereo shops do it. I do not do it this way because I don't want my harness to fall apart later, and I've seen them come undone. But this is called a crimp. I've heard it called a butt crimp. There's several different names for it, but what you do is you would take your 2 corresponding wires. So here's our grounds, they're both black wires, and you would pull off the insulator. The insulator just covers the conductor, which in this case is metal. That's what the electricity is going to flow through. And what you would do is you would push these into a crimp like this, and you would take pliers and you would crimp them together. So that now has connected these 2 wires and current can flow through it. Now I don't do it this way. What I do is I take a piece of heat shrink and I will slide it on to the wire. And if you don't know how to solder, it's not a big deal. There's several YouTube videos out there that show you how to solder, but I solder and heat shrink all my harnesses because I like to drive my vehicles off-road. I like to go exploring, and because of that, I don't want my harness pulling apart with heavy vibration. So what I'm doing here is I'm heating up the conductor. I'm laying a little bit of solder. And then what I would do is I'm going to go ahead and put my heat shrink over it and use some of that heat that I just put into that wire to shrink it a little bit, but I would use a lighter to shrink that. Now I'm going to do that. I'm going to connect every wire on this harness using that chart I provided earlier if the wires aren't marked. In this case, it's pretty standard. You know, the white wire goes to the white wire, the yellow wire goes to the yellow wire. So usually your yellow wire is your constant or your battery power. So your yellow is always going to be a positive, where the red is always going to be connected to an ignition source so that when your key is turned, your radio is on. You don't want to mix these up or connect them together, because then your radio is always going to be on and your battery is always going to drain. So I've seen that done before. You don't want to do that. You also don't want to mix up your red, yellow, or black wire. You want to make sure the black wire goes to the black wire. That's your ground. Your yellow wire goes to your yellow wire. Your rear speakers are typically purple and green, and your front speakers are typically white and gray wires. And so each speaker will have a positive and a negative. And so your solid white wire is going to be your positive, and your white wire with a black stripe is going to be a ground for that particular speaker. I'm going to put this together and then I'm going to show you how to plug it into your vehicle. All right, now to wrap up your wiring harness, once you have all your speakers, your power, your grounds, all that wired, it's normal to have extras. So the 2 that I do want to talk about is your blue wire will be for a power antenna or a power amplifier. So if your car has a built-in amplifier, you're going to want to use the blue wire and connect it across both harnesses. And then typically there's an orange wire. Sometimes there's multiple orange wires, so you want to read the labels on each of them. This one says dimmer and illumination. Now what this is talking about is when you turn on your headlights and your head unit dims, that's what this wire allows. It allows your head unit to dim, turn into night mode, and so you get a lot of those nighttime features. So the remaining ones on this harness were the rear camera positive, steering wheel controls. This is an old Toyota, so it doesn't have those. And then this one is steering wheel key plus. So we're not going to use these three. It's important to make sure that you wrap these wires up. I wouldn't cut them off because you never know. You might find out later that you can use one of these. For instance, in a future video, we're going to install a rear camera, so we're going to use that pink wire. We have the harness that we just made to make this head unit plug and play in our vehicle. So this is great for giving it power and getting audio to the speakers. Now, there's a couple other harnesses in here that you're going to want to use depending on what you're doing. So this one is an external microphone input. So if you want to be able to talk through your head unit with an external microphone, say you want to take phone calls, you're going to want to plug this harness in, and it's going to go right there. And then if you're going to install a reverse camera at any point, there's also a harness for that. So I'm going to leave that one out for now. All right, now to remove your dash, this is going to be different in every vehicle. But something that's nice to have is these plastic removal tools. It'll keep you from marring up your dash components. If you scratch these up or you pull too hard and you break it, these parts can be kind of expensive and difficult to find sometimes. So just be careful. Now I'm pulling this out of the way and I'm going to unplug. There's various connectors back here. I'm going to unplug those connectors. This is very convenient in this truck to where I can just kind of set this down once everything's unplugged. So this head unit is in here like this. A lot of times it'll be a 10 millimeter bolting your either OEM or aftermarket head unit in. In this case, this one is a 9 or an 8 millimeter, I'm not sure, but it also has a Phillips head. So just be careful that you use a proper screwdriver that is the proper size to remove these. All right, so once you pull the head unit out, you're going to want to unplug it from everything. This is an aftermarket radio, so it has a harness like we just built that I made previously. So I'm going to go ahead and unplug everything here. Now, this wire here is an antenna wire, so you're definitely going to make sure you plug that into your new head unit. All right, so I've removed the old head unit. Now, these brackets that are on this head unit actually came out off my factory head unit, and thankfully I was able to use them to put it on this head unit here. The ATOTO comes with various L brackets, and you can line them up on the side and then have them mount to your factory area. Now, I am a huge proponent of trying to use your factory brackets, because usually your factory brackets are going to fit better inside the plastic surround better than anything else out there. In this case, I'm going to have to use the L brackets out of the ATOTO kit to create this side piece like this for my factory brackets to mount to. All right, so after you have the brackets on and before you do all the wiring, so this is my old wiring still, I'm gonna tuck it down for just a second, and I'm going to make sure my head unit fits in there, and it does, exactly how I want it to. So once you verify that it actually fits in there, now I would set it to the side somewhere safe where you're not gonna knock it over, and you're gonna do your wiring. You're gonna unplug everything if there's anything left in here. If you already pulled your head unit out, there's a chance that all this came out with it. So in this case, this is a wiring harness I made once upon a time. You can see the heat shrink on there. And so we don't need that for what we're doing. We're gonna get rid of this old mic because the ATOTO came with a new one. And this is a GPS antenna that we don't need. All right, so what we're gonna do is let's get some of these plugs together. So this one is for our external microphone. So we'll go ahead and plug that bad boy in right there. Should be a nice satisfying click to it. We're gonna go ahead and plug our factory wiring harness in. So this converts it to the head unit, from the head unit to the vehicle. So in this case, because it's a Toyota, I have 2 plugs. If you're installing this on something else, you might have 1. So that's where I'm gonna put this one. I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in. And then something you're gonna wanna remember to install is your antenna, which in most cars looks like this. Depending on what you're driving, it might look different. So I have all that installed. And then what you're gonna wanna do is very nicely push everything back into the dash. Make sure you wrap any wires that are exposed, because you don't want to have any fires. Before I button everything back up, I like to verify that everything works. So in this case, I have radio, and I can hear it through all the speakers. I have no idea what a good radio station is, but in order to not have any copyright stuff, I'm not gonna play any music at the time. But this is your steering wheel control setup if you have steering wheel controls and you were able to plug that harness in, so just keep that in mind. The HD DVR is there, aux cables. So this is a really nice head unit for the price. I will link it down in the description. But because everything works, I'm gonna go ahead and button it all up or put it together. All right, now I'm gonna turn that off because I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube. But there's a home button here. There's all kinds of things. You can sync your phone to all of this. You can do YouTube, the works. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna plug everything back in the way you found it, and then you're gonna enjoy your new head unit. So that's it. You can do this in any vehicle. So I've had this a couple of days, and I just want to kind of show it to you guys and give you my thoughts, I guess sort of a review of it. So this is your main screen. If you set up Apple CarPlay, which I'll show you how that works in a second, if you set it up, it'll automatically wirelessly sync to your phone. So you'll have wireless Apple CarPlay, and it'll just default to that when you turn your key and you start your car. So in this case, this is how you get to all of the apps. You hit that little app button. Your wireless CarPlay, if for some reason it didn't auto start, which it will, but if you're scrolling through different menus and stuff and then you want to get back to it, it's just this CarLink 2.0 up there in the corner. This is Pandora. Any of your music apps will just pop up here like that. It is the quickest Apple CarPlay head unit that I've used. Everything is really nice. That's the end of the menu, that's why it won't go that way. But just scrolling back and forth, everything is super simple and easy. So with that said, you have your Apple CarPlay. There's other things, there's photo galleries, your equalizer, so you can set all that. And I'll be honest, this is way more in depth than I've seen in a long time. That's just where I keep mine, but you can customize all of this. So there's all kinds of other stuff on here. I know you can watch YouTube. You could even watch this video if you wanted. Over here you can connect via Wi-Fi via your phone or in your house, however you want to do it. But yeah, I think it's a good head unit. I think it's a bargain. I have a coupon code for this. I will include it in the description of the video, including a link to this head unit. So